Good morning. As we go through the news today, we see that a top NATO official urges leaders to get ready for a wartime scenario after Russia threatened retaliation for Ukraine strikes on its territory. This story is out of Euromaiden. NATO's Rob Bauer calls on industries to adjust production lines for operating under wartime scenarios. What he goes through here is to outline the need for production on a wartime footing. The NATO Committee Chair Rob Boyer says the West has time to prepare for potential military confrontations with Russia. In November 2024, Russian ruler Vladimir Putin escalated threats against the West, particularly targeting countries that support Ukraine's long-range strikes into Russia. Following an intermediate-range ballistic missile strike on Ukraine, Putin warned that Russia might retaliate against West nations supporting these Ukraine operations. Retaliation is a matter of perspective. Whether he's going to commit a strike on NATO soil is a completely other thing, because you can retaliate against NATO interests by arming the Houthis, North Koreans, Iranians, any number of proxies. Meanwhile, Bauer says the Russian army has grown significantly in size compared to pre-war levels, but its quality has declined since then. I beg to differ. It has adapted. Its quality hasn't declined. It has adapted to the modern battlefield. In the video I released yesterday, pointing out how war has changed, really good video, they've adapted. They're no longer sending large groups in armored personnel carriers and tanks for the most part. They're now sending people on four-wheelers, cross-country bikes, because it's a lot harder to target an individual on a four-wheeler speeding across, an individual speeding across on a motorcycle, than it is a giant APC rumbling through a field. Bauer also called on industries to prepare for a wartime scenario and adjust their production and distribution lines accordingly to reduce their vulnerability to blackmail from countries like Russia and China. Blackmail is probably the least of the worries. He referenced the early months of Russia's all-out war in Ukraine when Moscow cut off gas supplies to Europe. We thought we had a deal with Gazprom, but we actually had a deal with Mr. Putin. If you do a deal with Russia, are you foolish enough to think you're not doing a deal with Putin? If you do a deal with China, are you foolish enough to think you're not doing a deal with Xi? That naivete is really on you. He noted that China extracts 60% of the world's rare earth minerals and processes even more, 90%. Bauer said the chemical ingredient of many critical medicines consumed by the West also come from China, which they clearly do. We are naive to think that the Communist Party will ever use that power. Business leaders in Europe and America need to realize the commercial decisions they make have strategic consequences for the security of their nation, Bauer stressed. It'd be nice if more leaders did recognize that. Very few leaders do. They think globally instead of about their nations individually. Hopefully with this new administration that changes here in the United States. The Admiral also admitted that NATO is discussing the possibility of strikes on Russian weapon systems if it attacks the alliance first. If it attacks the alliance first, well, NATO is a defensive alliance. That's really nothing strange there. It is a discussion that is relatively young in NATO, and I'm very happy that we have had it and we've now changed this attitude. The idea that we are a defensive alliance will only sit and wait until we're attacked, and when we are attacked, we will be able to shoot down the arrows that come at us. But it's smarter not only to do so, but to attack the archer that is in Russia if Russia attacks us. This has been used as NATO is contemplating a first strike. At no point does he say that. At no point does he say that. We'll finish the article here in a moment, but at no point does he say that. He's emphasizing the defensive portion of the alliance. And that's so... Just reading some of the articles that are out here today is astonishing that these words are used as a possible first strike. It shows the propaganda we're living with. NATO Military Committee Chief emphasized the alliance only regards targeting Russian weapon systems in the case it delivers the first blow, as it is not going to attack Russia out of nothing. To endure a potential attack, NATO needs more air defenses, which is one of the lessons from Ukraine. Again, reiterating that it's a defensive alliance, that they're not going to attack first. Russia would have to attack. But the point of his conference is basically that the United States and the West face very specific production issues, very specific production lacking. We're lacking in production of shells, ships, munitions. Certain things we just can't do to the same level that we used to. Shells, millions of shells are used in Ukraine every year. The West produces only about 1 million or 2 every year. This article specifically, U.S. Navy ship programs face years-long amid labor and shortage supply woes. As we go through this, and I'm not going to go line by line, but it talks out the first Columbia-class SSBN 16 months later than its delivery date. That's in 2029. I'm going to link everything in here. But it also talks about our new frigates, how they're far behind. Years behind. Here. The future USS Enterprise is expected to be delivered 18 to 26 months late. The United States has only 4 major shipyards. I'll link all this in the in this video. The West does have an arms shortage, ships, ammunition, but it's due to a logistical issue of our own creation. We have, I'll bring this up. We have closed major shipyards. Major shipyards. Highlighted here, everything in 1996 to 2011. 6 major United States Navy shipyards in the continental United States alone. Is it any wonder the Navy is 26 months behind on virtually every single one of their ships? Every one of the new designs, the new frigate, the new aircraft carrier, the new ballistic missile submarine, the new attack submarine, all behind. All behind. And that doesn't mention how far behind we are on the making of shells, which Congress has just allocated a couple of $1 billion for new shell manufacturing facilities and technology. We're behind. We're far behind. And this admiral, he's right. He never said, prepare for an attack on Russia. What he says is that NATO is unprepared for war. And NATO is unprepared for war at this moment. Can that change? Yes. Will it? Well, we'll see. We know that President Trump would like it to. It's up to Europe.